human beings can be one of the weakest links in security, but they can also be like the strongest. The human firewall can be one of the biggest benefits to an organization that does security awareness well. For me, it really helped to have kind of a conceptual basis of understanding, both from school and setting the security plus, and then having some internships in there while I was at school to kind of get some real world experience. And it wasn't all necessarily just classroom. And sometimes those don't always interact very well. You'll learn some concepts, and then you'll see in practice. Okay, if we try to push too hard on the security side, the business can't function.
Welcome to another episode of the Bearded IT Dad. Today we have a very special guest with us. He is a cybersecurity engineer for a Fortune 500 company and currently doing some consulting work. He has a rapidly growing YouTube channel all about cybersecurity and making it easy for you. Please welcome Caleb McMurtrey, right?
What's up? Yep. I get that all the time. No problem.
How's it going today?
Oh, it's rolling. The week's rolling along. We're making it. The weather's getting warmer. It's all going according to plan.
Absolutely. So for people who are watching this that don't know who you are, do you mind kind of introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name's Caleb McMurtrey. I've been in the field for about almost 2 years now. Graduated back in May of 2020, studying cybersecurity, and really just kind of hit the ground running. I realized in about July of 2020 that I was kind of starting to lose track of some of the fundamentals of cybersecurity. So I decided to start a YouTube channel, and I've kind of kept up with that. It's called Studios Tech. And yeah, just kind of hitting a lot of the cybersecurity stuff. We actually, we got to know each other in the chat of my podcast. And it's, great again to, meet you now officially, one-on-one. Just kind of have been really kind of booking it ever since graduating school. So it's been pretty busy, but it's been a good time.
Like I mentioned, you work full time. You have several YouTube channels that seem to be taking off quite quickly now. Your biggest one I've noticed is talking about cybersecurity, and you talk about different threats that are coming out and advice on people coming into the field. But what I want to dive into first is, what is a day in the life of your current position? You've been a cybersecurity engineer. Now you're working more consulting. What does a day look like for you?
Yeah, it's, it can kind of change a lot. It really depends on what's going on. Currently it's a lot of detection work, and just kind of making sure that everything is not on fire, which is always a fun thing, especially whenever it is on fire. But prior to this, there was I worked a little bit detection, a little bit in some incident response, and then a lot more in the engineering side, more working on the back end, not necessarily doing the IR stuff. So I've kind of already, just in the past 2 years, ping-ponged around on the blue team side. I've done some practicing on my own on the red team side, but definitely not anything on that end professionally. So definitely more, more on the blue team so far.
One question I have for you, I kind of want to get your take on it. Would you consider cybersecurity like an entry-level position that someone with little to no experience could just jump straight into cybersecurity, or is there a different path you recommend for people to take?
That's such a good question, and it's so varied. By both the organizations, that maybe they're applying to, and maybe the skill sets and the passion that the employee themselves have, right? I mean, I feel like it's kind of, you'd be hard pressed to have an easier time, I guess, hitting the ground running without any experience. It'd be, or really, any knowledge of IT in general. Because of course, you got to know what you're defending. For me, it really helped to have kind of a conceptual basis of understanding, both from school and setting the security plus, and then having some internships in there while I was at school to kind of get some real world experience. And it wasn't all necessarily just classroom. And sometimes those don't always interact very well. You'll learn some concepts, and then you'll see in practice. Okay, if we try to push too hard on the security side, the business can't function. And so kind of learning those lessons early, that really helps. I've certainly heard of some folks managing to get into cybersecurity right out without any experience or anything like that. So I want to say it's not possible at all, but it's definitely highly dependent. And I'd probably say the number one thing is how fast you're willing to learn and pick things up like as soon as probably prior to your start date, but certainly after your start date to really get going.
So, like, one thing I kind of always recommend to people is if you're looking to get into the field, start off like a help desk position, kind of get those fundamental IT skills, and then after maybe a year on the help desk or so, branch out into what you're passionate about. Would you kind of agree that's a good path to go?
It's certainly a great path. Yeah. I mean, one of the internships I was at definitely wasn't for a year. I was very short stint, but it was at help desk and it was very informative to kind of get that picture. I think I don't know why it is, that help desk kind of gets the rap that it does. But it is so like you have to be so multifunctionally aware and prepared for help desk. And they often, that's often your tier one responders for security incidents. So, it's just as much a part of the security world, as anything else. So yeah, that's definitely a great spot.
Absolutely. You kind of get a mixture of everything, but it's I think it also kind of prepares you for some of the stressful times in cybersecurity. Because a lot of times you're under the gun, you have stuff isn't working, you might have not a lot of knowledge on why things aren't working, which happens sometimes in the security world. So I think it kind of prepares you. If you can handle that stress well at the help desk, it's just going to kind of scale into a cybersecurity position. I want your take on certifications. A lot of people looking to get in cybersecurity, they'll start off with like a Security Plus or a PNPT. What do you think is the best certification at that very entry level, like someone who's just getting their toes wet?
Absolutely, the Security Plus. I'm a little biased because that's actually like the only one. The only like I took like another like fundamental certification like way long ago. It was like CSX fundamentals or something from like ISACA, but not bad. But like I think Security Plus is definitely one of those ones that like, yeah, that's a good one, and it's not easy, but it will give such a broad and pretty good understanding of security in general from like a whole of industry perspective. It's not just blue team; it's red team, governance, management. There's a lot to it. Even if we talked about this on one of the, I think it was the podcast that we met on, right?
Yeah.
How was it? Trying to remember what specifically was said, but um, that Zach Hill kind of mentioned that everybody should probably get the Security Plus in IT, regardless. And I kind of almost agree.
Yeah.
A lot of setting for everybody, but yeah, I mean, it's invaluable information to digest for sure.
Yeah, and I really liked what he said. Security is not just the job of the cybersecurity department or people working in security. Security is everyone's responsibility, and like you said earlier, those help desk positions are a lot of times those frontline responders, those tier ones that are sometimes noticing the security vulnerability or the event as it's happening, and they're going to probably be the ones to report it to you guys. So I think it's really important in no matter what you do in IT, that you have very good security awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. Even outside of IT, as far as just like an awareness perspective, I mean, the human beings can be one of the weakest links in security, but they can also be like the strongest. The human firewall can be one of the biggest benefits to an organization that does security awareness well. So yeah, it's hard to do, but it's effective.
Absolutely. Now, there's no doubt about it. Cybersecurity is a very hot topic right now, a very hot job market. It's growing daily. And with that, there's also, I think, a lot of different ways to really get into the field and learn. Do you have kind of any favorites when it comes to like e-learning platforms or resources or tools to kind of study and practice cybersecurity?
Yeah, that's a good one. As far as like free platforms go, just because anybody can jump on it and use those resources, I feel like YouTube. I'm again kind of biased, but YouTube is phenomenal. You can learn everything from coding, you can learn everything from security. I mean, you can learn finance. YouTube is such a phenomenal education platform that just so happens to have entertainment content. And then Try Hack Me has a lot of really good free content. They also have like a subscription tier, but that is a phenomenal platform in my opinion, just because it's not just covering like a lot of like the fundamental concepts and stuff like that, but there's hands-on labs. And with like the paid tier, you can like boot up your own VM and connect in like a VPN, and so you can actually get some of those tools. Like say you're wanting to learn like pen testing, you can practice with your own personal VM and get those tools on your system, get familiar with your own VM and stuff like that, or practice in a browser if you're not able to boot up a VM. But yeah, it's phenomenal. It's a really good platform.
Yeah, I've used Try Hack Me a lot. Another one I used a lot was Hack the Box. I really
Mhm.
enjoyed Hack the Box, and um, Hack the Box kind of gamifies it, I think, a little bit more. I don't know. I might be biased because I've used it more, but yeah, absolutely. Um, Earlier, when you were talking about YouTube and stuff like that, you mentioned, learning different things. I know one thing that's really important to learn is some sort of programming or scripting language in
Mhm.
cybersecurity. Do you have like, any recommendations on a certain language? I know it probably varies whether you're blue team, red team, but what is your recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, as far as specific languages, personally, I'm like a big Python stan. It's just so like easy to read and pick up. You'll get a lot of different answers from folks on whether or not you necessarily like need to know a coding language. Personally, like so far, granted it's only 2 years, but so far I haven't had to do really much coding, if any, unless it was like a personal project or something like that, or goofing with a tool, which was also a personal project. So, but I think understanding like the logic of coding languages is probably a bigger asset than anything if you're not going to learn a particular coding language. But yeah, I personally swing Python.
And I'm more of a networking guy. I'm the director of network operations at my day job, and one nice thing about Python is a lot of different aspects of IT use Python. Networking uses Python heavily, especially with networking automation. I know security uses Python as well. So Python's a really nice universal language. Personally, I haven't studied it at all. I'm very much a script kiddie whenever it comes to any sort of coding languages. I mean, like I know my way around like a bash shell, but that's about it because I deal with a lot of Linux. I'm almost at the command line every day, but yeah, absolutely. Um, you know, we've talked about a couple different roles. We were talking about blue team, red team, and stuff like that. What are some of the common job roles you notice in cybersecurity?
Like just the ones that are most hired.
Yeah, I mean, some of the maybe like entry level job roles you see in cybersecurity stuff like that. And also if you have time, what is the difference between blue team and red team for the viewers that don't understand?
Yeah, for sure. I'll start with that one just because it's we'll knock it out and then we'll dive into the entry level
Yeah.
position title thing. You can kind of split cybersecurity teams in like really big organizations, and I want to kind of stress it because this is all pretty expensive. Hiring a lot of employees and having them do security stuff costs a lot of money. So unfortunately, unless it's like a cybersecurity company, really only like the bigger organizations can afford to do both a blue team and a red team like in house. But the blue team, is running like all the defense, and the red team is assisting the defense and kind of augmenting their capability by really auditing the defense itself and kind of testing the response time, Sometimes blue team will patch a bunch of systems, or you have all the engineers like, roll out some updates and patches, and then the red team will go in and audit the patching and test out the exploit that was, targeting the previous version, and they'll see if there's any holes, and then it's kind of a feedback loop. So there's a term that's being used more now that I'm seeing is purple team, where it's kind of a blend of the two. And I've seen some cases where the red team is doing blue team stuff more than not. They just so happen to they'll get peeled off occasionally and do some red team offensive stuff. But it's really all defense in the big scheme of things. As far as entry level positions, this one always kind of confuses me because I'm big into standardization, right? And so I would love it if everybody just used the same terms for the same things, right? And so you look at company A, B, C, and D, and exactly it's the same position scheme, what you're looking at. So you'll see some cases where some will, one group would basically put more intermediate to upper level roles on an entry level job, or requirements, I guess, on an entry level job, and then others that are a bit more appropriate for entry level. But as far as the job titles go, I mean, cybersecurity analyst is a pretty standard one that I've seen a lot. Some of them will be engineer, some will be system admin. It really just varies so much company to company and what it is that they're looking for, and really what they want them to do. So yeah, it's kind of a difficult thing to look at.
Well, that was part one of our series with Caleb, and I can't wait for our next episode where we talk all about tips for landing a job in the security field. Now, I want to ask you all a really quick question, and you can let me know in the comments below. With cybersecurity being such an important part of everyone's day-to-day job, what are you doing now to grow your skills? Let me know below. Well, I hope you all enjoyed today's video, and I can't wait to see you all in the next episode.